What is wrong with the Cavs and the Warriors? Are the Magic for real? Can the Pistons make a breakthrough this year? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown podcast / live show. And as always on Monday, I'm joined by Dave DuFour at Dave DuFour NBA. And it's been a pretty eventful weekend Monday to talk about for the NBA, wouldn't you say, Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a busy weekend, and those are always good, right?
Busy weekends are always good. This morning was also very busy. I suspect you had nobody banging down your door and searching through your papers.
No. As far as I know, I'm not mentioned in the indictment documents.
All right, good. Although, I do have my suspicions about you being a spy as it is anyway, so that'll have to be borne out.
Listen, you speak a little bit of Russian, you travel around the world, and all of a sudden everybody thinks you're a spy. Like, this is not anything new to me. I've been dealing with this for a while,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would expect you to get more scrutiny as well on that. So, let's talk a little bit. Let's scrutinize some teams in the NBA that have had a rough start of the season because it was strange. I tweeted it out on Saturday that both the Magic and Magic in the East and the Grizzlies in the West were number one in the conference after 5-6 games, which is pretty crazy. Which also means that the Cavs and the Warriors are kind of down low and struggling. So, what do you make of these two teams, the two finalists the last several years, struggling so much to begin?
Well, with the Warriors, we can basically just throw it out, right? It is. Steve Kerr, again, with the screwy rotations. These guys are not really interested in playing these games. And I haven't seen anything that's too troubling, except for the effort, right? For the Cavs, it's the same thing that you and I kind of railed about last year, where their defense is terrible, and it only got worse. They got older. Their best players are in year like 14 or 15. That's troubling. LeBron still looks like LeBron, which is great, but he doesn't look totally engaged. And so,
right.
Take that and less shooting.
Less engaged, but he's still like getting triple doubles and he's still filling up the stats, but it's a bit empty. The thing I noticed, I'm going to do a video on this, is like the defense is bad. So they're ranked 27th right now in defensive rating, but guess what? The Warriors are 28th. Like, that's unheard of. It's crazy. But the thing I noticed with LeBron is, it's fair to say that he's conserving energy on the defensive end. Is that fair?
That sounds about right. But then there's been a lot of sloppy offensive possessions. One that stands out to me yesterday, he was like just going behind his back and lost the ball. And that's just not normal LeBron James behavior. We're used to seeing him be incredible at all times and nearly perfect, especially on the offensive end. And then the traveling thing has just gotten to the point where it's laughable. It's a joke, right? Like, I think in the Warriors game last night, the Warriors-Pistons game, there were like 3 or 4 travels called.
Yeah.
Has LeBron been called for a travel this year? I know he has done it multiple times. Last night possibly being the worst, where he took 6 steps in the lane. Yeah. It's just insane.
Right. Yeah, I tweeted that out. Someone shared it with me. I had missed it because I was watching part of the game, but I didn't see that one. And it was like crab dribble and then slide the pivot foot and do all sorts of crazy stuff. And people were, it's like, and to get back to your point as far as the traveling goes, yes, there's a huge emphasis. We did a video with Ronnie Nunn last week where we showed how much they're emphasizing the traveling on the perimeter. And so it's like it clearly is a thing. Now, that said, in defense of maybe the referees and their focus, maybe they don't call the one on LeBron, A, because it's LeBron, but B, because he's in the lane. And it's not that like shot fake, try and spot up and then attack the basket, which is where they're calling all these travels now. But still, it's pretty bad. It's been very bad. And does this go under, do we file this under sort of star treatment for LeBron? Is that what the non-traveling calls are?
I mean, but Steph Curry got called for a travel, right? Like, so I don't think that you can say that. I think it's just that the referees, like, he must be just really good at it. Let's put it that way. But like when you're watching on TV, we have a great angle and we can see all this stuff. But that one last night was just so obvious. I couldn't believe it was called. I mean, It was brutal. But anyway, yeah, back to like the team struggles thing. I'm not worried about the Warriors at all. This could be the season that the Cavs don't make the finals. I mean, like I know we said that last year, and LeBron did LeBron things, and I expect probably something similar will happen this year. But they just got. I just feel like they got worse this offseason. Losing Kyrie turns out is actually a big deal.
It absolutely is, and not having Isaiah Thomas. Now, very briefly, in our little queue, we have some people in our show right now who are part of the Shindig. We have Cowboy Caviar, DJM, Al, and Tom's. And if you guys have a question you want to ask, you can either, if you're on a computer with a camera, you can ask us live with that, or just by audio. So raise your hand. There's a little button in there. I think you can raise your hand to ask a question, or as a question area, either one of those, and we can find it. And if you do, we'll put you in our show, and you can ask it directly. So that'll be exciting. We did this last time, Dave, and we had a couple of good questions that way. And if you had either text, audio, or video, we'd love to see your face and have you talk to us. So let's go through the one point I want to make about the LeBron defense is that, so what I've noticed is that he's willing to make the first rotation. And I'm going to go through the footage. What I've seen just by watching a little bit of the Cavs this year is that like he'll bump down on the roll man or he'll rotate down on the weak side. But then when it swings to his man, like in the corner, he makes no attempt to close back out again. And they're getting wide open 3-point attempts that way, especially in the corners. That's a real problem. And obviously when you're playing against the Cavs and who have LeBron, you're going to need threes to overcome that. And that's what's going on so far.
Yeah. And they're just not even getting the threes up. Right, like they're not just not making threes; they're not shooting enough threes. So, yeah, I mean it's troubling, man. And there's I keep hearing Isaiah Thomas is coming back. Don't worry, they'll be fine. Isaiah Thomas is coming back. When is Isaiah Thomas coming back? Right now, we don't know. It's undetermined. They're saying maybe January, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
What Isaiah Thomas is coming back? Okay. Hip injuries for basketball players, man, they can be killers. And is he going to come back? What percentage of Isaiah Thomas are we going to get? It's not going to be 100%. He's got an injury that rest doesn't solve this problem. So, I don't think Isaiah Thomas is going to be some kind of savior for this team. The other thing is, man, their biggest problem is defense, and Isaiah Thomas is terrible. He's worse than Kyrie.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I can also speak to the nature of the injury as well as rest is not going to help it, really. That's the thing. If they're not going to do surgery, then he can, probably do like Pilates or that kind of thing for strengthening and stretching stuff. But he's going to be in pain when he plays, and they're going to have to just manage that. So as far as I could tell, my feeling is the only reason why they're waiting until January is simply because they don't want to aggravate the injury anymore and have to just deal with it from January on. It's nothing to do with the fact that he's going to get better with this. An impingement doesn't really get better. Your bones are hitting bone, and your torn labrum is going to be torn. Short of surgery, it's not going to get better. So that's why to me, it's the only reason why they're waiting this long. And, it's going to be an issue, especially what you said about the defense, because, they're already struggling. Derrick Rose has not been that answer either on that. And he's not looked that great. And let's face it, they've gotten blown out 3 straight times, they got blown out twice by very inferior teams. If we look at the schedule right here, they got blown out last night by the Knicks at home. It was a second of a back-to-back, but still it was at home. They lost to the Pelicans, and they got blown out there. And then they had lost, to the Brooklyn Nets in Brooklyn. So this is the problem.
The first game of the year was the game that Gordon Hayward got hurt, and it was still close with Boston. So, I think that right now that's just in a very good team. I think they'll be fine. They still have to be the favorites to make the finals just because of LeBron. But at a certain point, like he just cannot do it alone. Someone else has to do something.
Yes. What was the tweet he had or whatever? The quote was he needs reinforcements. He needs something. I can't remember what he was saying last year, right? He needed someone to come in there. He demanded the trade for some more firepower. So clearly they understand it. Now, as far as the Warriors go, right, we mentioned, the wacky it looks like what Steve Kerr wants to do is in the first 20 games, he's just going to throw everybody out there to see what he's got, and he doesn't care if he goes 12-8. Or whatever that's going to be. The
best center on their roster that's not Draymond Green has been inactive for the last 2 games. This is experimental season for Steve Kerr.
Wait, who's the best center on the roster?
Jordan Bell.
Okay. Right. What's his
I
deal?
mean,
Did he get
maybe
hurt?
David West. No. It's just so he's rotating the minutes. That's it. He's going pop, with his bench, and especially the end to bench stuff. And I mean, he really has embraced his inner pop and is totally going for it. And it's hard to argue against it because of how successful Pop has been. But at the same time, I don't know that the Warriors have the mental makeup that the Spurs have had. I don't know if these guys can continue to lose these games that they should be winning and they can stay happy. So, that remains to be seen.
Absolutely. Well, we have a question here, it looks like, from Tommy. Are the Magic for real? Playoffs? Great question here from Tommy. What do you think, Dave? Have you had a chance to watch much of them this year?
I have. The Magic have quickly become must-watch basketball. They're like a great league pass team. Yeah, I think they can make the playoffs. I've said this a couple of times in the last week. Their pace is super high, and I think that the offensive rating is probably unsustainable. I don't think they have the shooting to continue to shoot as well as they have. But if you look at what they're doing, it is sustainable. Their best three-point shooter is probably Nick Vucevic. He gets to, in the high-tempo offense, he gets to get a lot of trail threes. He's shooting fantastic percentage from above the break. He's really comfortable there. So when the rest of the guys get out and run, they're causing the defense to have to drop back, and Vooch is getting these wide open trail threes. And then when the defense tries to recover to him, these guys are cutting off of that. It's actually pretty impressive, and it's amazing that it took them this long to figure out how to use Aaron Gordon. It doesn't hurt that Aaron Gordon's shot looks so much better. His shot stroke is much improved, and I'm glad to see it this early in his career.
I mean, probably worthy of a breakdown. He's shooting 50. I just got off the damn thing. 50-something% from three on 4 attempts per game plus, which is crazy for a guy who had never, ever really done that before. I don't even know what to make of that. But, so tell me, if you're looking at mechanic-wise, because I haven't studied it really break the frame by frame, what are you seeing with Aaron Gordon? So, and he's scoring 22 a game, 10 rebounds, almost 3 assists. He's shooting 58.8%. We've seen a lot of guys to start the season, over 4, 5, 6 games shooting lights out, which makes sense. They're coming off of the training of the offseason. They're probably not beat up yet, so they're going to be feeling comfortable. But what are you seeing anything very specific in what he's doing on his shot that's leading to such a high percentage on high volume?
Well, he's turned his body some, right? And that always helps, turn the feet. And then he's not jumping as high. Remember, this is something you and I have talked about with Russ. If Russ didn't jump so high on his threes, he probably would shoot a much better percentage. And so he's conserving energy, but also it's a more repeatable motion. So I think that he's just more consistent. But what he's doing right now is probably unsustainable. I don't imagine he's going to shoot 50% for the year. That would be insane.
Right.
But there's nothing in his mechanics that don't make me think that he could be an above average 3-point shooter, 38%, something like that. If he can shoot 38%, Aaron Gordon's a max player. And you and I have talked about it. His athleticism's off the charts. Now they're playing him in the right position. He's pushing the ball. Like, he's actually kind of like Blake Griffin light over there. I hate to do that because he's been compared so much to Blake, but like just in the way that the offense is really, like, you can tell he's sort of in charge of it, of the pace and things like that.
Absolutely. Blake Griffin's a really, really great comparison. And as we go forward, I'm sure, he's shooting a career high from the free throw line at 4.5 attempts per game as well. So everything is now ticking up for him. And certainly the Magic deserve a breakdown. I need to do one. I haven't even done one of them for years at this point. So I'm excited to get in there and really look at what he's doing, especially to get that many assists as well, because this is sort of an all-star status here. Now, if he drops down to like 38%, I don't know the math exactly, but he probably goes from 22 a game to, what is that, like 19, 18, but like that's 18, 10, 1.3 blocks and 3 assists. So those are great numbers for a guy in his 4th year on a team that's, up and coming. So it's really exciting to see what's going on with the Magic.
What's also really exciting is that DraftKings is back with NBA Daily Fantasy. You can be part of the action every night when you choose between public contests with big cash prizes or private contests where you can take on your friends. If you're a beginner or a casual fantasy player, they've got a contest for you as well. Drafting your team is simple. Pick 8 players and stay under the salary cap, something Doc Rivers is going to have a hard time doing with DeAndre Jordan pretty soon. You earn points for scoring, assists, blocks, rebounds, and lots of other stats. There's no better way to turn your love of basketball into cash in your pocket. And there's no commitment. Each day is a new contest. So hurry to DraftKings.com now and use code CoachNick to play free with your first deposit for your share of $10,000 in total prizes tonight. That's code CoachNick to play for free with your first deposit. Only at DraftKings. The game inside the game.
We have another question. Should we throw it up here?
Sure.
Let's do this. Cowboy Caviar asks, were either of you guys expecting Kyrie to maybe carry more of an offensive load in Boston than he has? And by the way, let me throw this in there. If you join us with the link, if you go out to my Twitter account, you'll see we've done a bit.ly for this that you can ask a question in our shindig, and it'll go right up on the screen for you. So check that out if you can and ask some questions. You can do it with video too. So let's go back to the question. Kyrie, Cowboy Caviar wants to know if we expected him to do a heavier load than he is.
I think a lot of people did. I'm trying to pull up his usage. I mean, his usage is at like 29%. That's a pretty heavy load for the Celtics. You know, they aren't normally so dependent on one guy. So it's a pretty heavy load. He is taking how many shots per game? He's taking almost 19 shots a game, which is last year he took almost 20 shots a game. So it's a pretty heavy load. He just isn't performing as well as people would expect. He's shooting 41% from three, but only 47% overall. So I think that that's really actually the difference.
He's not. He's shooting 32% from three.
Oh, yeah. My bad. What was I looking at? I was looking at 2
overall.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. 32%. Thanks. From three. So he's just not shooting as well as we expect. And so I guess it looks like, you know, he's not shouldering much of a load, but I mean, nearly 30% usage rate. That's pretty high.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there's you keep seeing little bits of evidence of him getting it and like facilitating. His assist numbers are not up when I thought that they would be. He started the season up, with 10 assists, and it looked like, he's going to start getting 8 or 9 a game, like, as opposed to the 5.5 he was getting in Cleveland. But it's kind of right back down to that 5.7 mark where he's always been. And, I think that's just sort of a function of dealing with, Jaylen Brown just sort of getting – I had to imagine there's got to be a number of blown assists for him as well. You see that a little bit where these guys are getting, good passes from him. They're not knocking down the shots. And then, they're just going to be up and down up until, Brown could get more comfortable. And then the guy from Duke is oh my God, I always forget his name, Jason Tatum, until he gets more comfortable as well. And the whole team kind of gels around the non-Gordon Hayward or that absence. They're going to throw Morris in there now. So they're going to be up. It's going to be up and down, I think, for the first half of the season.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Their abbreviated training camp was all about integrating Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving. And then in the first game, Gordon Hayward goes out. So, take him a little bit to kind of reconfigure things. I would love to see his usage go down a little bit, but his efficiency go up. And I think that could happen if the rest of his team kind of picks up the slack. I'm with you on that. Right.
Well, should we turn our eyes over to the chat room in the Periscope, which we have some people out here right now, because certainly see if you can grab a question here. I'm going to tweet this out, let everyone else know we're still out here recording because
So are the Grizzlies for real? This is from Miller Mears 3. Can they keep winning enough to get in the playoffs? I feel like it could be real. We'll see. What do you think, Nick?
Absolutely. I mean, we just did an article on the .com about them because they're kind of a weird band of misfits off their bench. Just a weird collection of players. Chandler Parsons is looking like he's getting back to his old self a little bit there, which makes me excited because, he's gone so long and it's been so hard for him. But they got like guys like Brandon Wright and Dylan Brooks, who, again, another guy who was completely overlooked for no reason, as far as I could tell. Loved him in college. Tyreek Evans, Mario Chalmers. It's a strange world of lost toys, and they're actually doing well and keeping this thing together around the two stars, Gasol and Conley. And so they are, this is a team that definitely could compete. What I find so interesting is that they've been able to maintain their identity, that grit and grind identity, for so long through 3 different coaches and a roster's turnover and all these different things. And yet there they are, and they still play the same way, even without like Tony Allen there. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's impressive. Let's see. How about this? Katie the Kid asks if we could give the Pistons some love. You know what? This is something I wanted to talk about today. The Pistons have looked really good for a variety of reasons. Tobias Harris is looking like the guy we all thought he could be 2 years ago. Andre Drummond hitting free throws, looking pretty good on defense. Reggie Jackson looks healthy. Guys look happy to kind of be playing together. Stanley Johnson's been great on defense. I'm impressed with the Pistons, man. I think that they're looking really good. Avery Bradley doing Avery Bradley things, just what he does.
By the way, another guy, he's shooting 46% from 3 on 4 attempts per game. Again, like I have to look at the overall league average. I have to imagine it's higher than it normally is because all these guys are shooting so well from 3. Even Tobias Harris. I mean, I am blown away right now. He's shooting 46% on 6 attempts per game from 3-point land, which is crazy. So again, that's not sustainable either. I don't think for him necessarily, but when you get a healthy Reggie Jackson,
he had a huge 3 right over Durant last night in the game against Golden State. It was really impressive.
Yeah. And so, they're getting good production from the guys they need. And Reggie is now healthy again and giving he'll give his 16, 17 a game and 6 assists or 7 assists per game. So that's what you're going to get from him and just be a tough guy to guard. So, listen, it was funny. We had a big podcast last week with Chris Oliver, who had gone to 4 different practices during training camp for multiple days on 4 different teams. And the way he compared the Pistons to everybody else was like Stan Van Gundy was out there and he was just coaching and really like teaching the game and helping people learn how better to, execute and how to get better. Whereas the other teams like the Cavs, and it shows, didn't really do much at all. And I know veteran teams, they already have a shorthand or whatever, but it definitely sounded a bit unimpressive. If you haven't listened to that podcast, you should, because it is really, really good as far as, like getting insight into what it is to watch a real NBA practice and what that's like. So I think there's no doubt why they're starting out so strong. The only question is, can they sustain this and lead this to them in the playoffs? What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll find out, right? Like, because I think they'll make the playoffs in the East. Can everyone stay healthy for the whole season? That's going to be the big trick with them. I guess we'll see. We're getting a lot of requests in the chat to talk about Oklahoma City. Do you have a take on OKC?
Well, are we surprised that it's been a struggle so far?
No, I'm not at all. And not, this is not a negative thing. I just think it takes teams a little bit to figure it out, especially, Melo and Paul George are kind of getting into new roles. And so is Westbrook, for that matter. Westbrook's been really good. He's been really good.
Yeah.
Locked in on defense even. I've watched him quite a bit. His off-ball defense has been much better than in years past. And he's getting rebounds, but they're part of the scheme now. He's not leaving his man to go rebound. So that's been really impressive. I think he's been better so far this year than he was last year because he's playing. I mean, it's team concept basketball that he's playing, and he's performing so well. Shooting the ball really well from 3. And if that can be maintained, then it's going to make it easier for these other guys to kind of pick their games up. But I'm not surprised. It takes a little while to figure things out.
Right, and a quick snapshot of the production right now is Russell Westbrook has taken has cut his points per game quite a bit, which makes perfect sense with Melo and George. And yet he's still averaging a triple-double, and he's shooting really well from 3, and he's kind of cut down the threes as well, which has been really important for him. So Carmelo is averaging 24. Paul is averaging 20. And guess what? Steven Adams is averaging 14.5 and 8 rebounds. So if you were to come to me and give me those numbers for the season, I'd say, great, that's exactly what they want, especially when you look at their third ranked in defense so far and through 6 games. and they're 11th in offense. So it's like there's got to be an adjustment here as these numbers start normalizing, where they're going to win more of these games. It's a little bit. I think there's a little bit of an anomaly when you're playing that well. We do know that the Minnesota game was a loss. That was sort of a wonky ending that maybe shouldn't have gone against them that way. And then another close loss to the Wolves as well. So I think once they get away from those couple losses there, they'll get back to winning their 60% of the games and be third in the conference.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. Let's see. Would you rather
have
have
in the? We have a question in our shindig, so let's do that. So publish. This is Tom's asks. What do you think about Dwight Howard so far this season? It looks like he is back in some good moon. Do you think he can keep it up? Interesting question. Have you got a chance to put some eyeballs on Dwight this year?
Yeah, Dwight's looked really good, man. If he wasn't shooting like 25% from the free throw line, we would all be really noticing. But his rebounding has been fantastic. His defense has been really good. Again, Steve, you and I talked about this before the season. Steve Clifford knows how to coach defense with a guy like Dwight. He coached Dwight in Orlando, right? So, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to use Dwight within Dwight's kind of, the scope of his game. Offensively, still don't love some of the stuff he's doing, like, trying to post up and things like that, but whatever. Defensively and on the boards, he's been fantastic this year. And I think he can keep it up. I think he can. Now let's see though, at what point does he start to annoy his teammates? I've already seen some stuff where, you remember in preseason when he went coast to coast, right? Well, now he started bringing the ball up after defensive rebounds some, and you can see his teammates already being like a little annoyed by it. So that guy just must be a real asshole in the locker room. I mean, people must just really not like him, because to get that annoyed that quickly over something so innocuous is, that's something.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I think he's probably got a smile on his face. So it's almost like whatever, issues, it's sort of like backstabbing issues behind the scenes. You know what I mean? I feel like, on the surface of it, he probably is nice and trying to be nice, even though he doesn't, the actions don't always match. The thing I'd be watching for is with those post-ups is the turnover issues he's had. And he's averaging a career high right now per game at 4.2. That's way too high for a center. Even for a center who handles the ball a lot. 4.2 is way too many, especially when he turns them over in the post area when you're supposed to be down there getting a good shot at the basket. So that's the issue you're going to see there. That's going to hurt them to some degree. But overall, you're right. I mean, his numbers are good, and you can't argue too much with what's going on there. And if you look at their their record right now is 2-3, so it's not like they're gangbusters, but it's there's something happening there. I won't disagree with.
Yeah. Do you got any thoughts on Oladipo? That's another thing that keeps popping up in the chat. What do you think about Oladipo?
Well, here's the thing. I was looking at his numbers. I actually haven't had a chance to watch what he's doing. I have to admit it. For some reason, Indiana just isn't on the top of my list. How about for you?
Yeah. I've watched him a little bit, and he looks confident. That's number one, right? Like, he looks confident with the basketball. The numbers are pretty good, but it's early. A 575 effective field goal percentage, 25 points a game. His usage is 31.5%. That's like superstar level usage, and he's making the most of it. I think he's been pretty good. This is sort of where we kind of thought, he might be this last year.
Yeah, I mean, is it a natural progression for a guy who's entering his fifth year and now has the more free reign to do things than he did in the past? I mean, maybe. Again, by the way, another guy who's shooting 47% from 3 on 5 attempts. It's crazy. Maybe worthy of a video just to do that is spotlight the top 10, 10 guys who are surprisingly. Blake Griffin's in that discussion. Did they make shooting so well and why?
Did they make the rim
maybe they're using different
season?
balls. Maybe the balls are different. The stitching is different.
I don't know. I don't think so, but
that's what they did in baseball. Maybe it's what happens here in basketball too.
They juice the ball. Steph Curry's only shooting 34.7% so from 3. So I don't think it's a juiced ball. I just think it's early. These guys will come back down to earth. But at the same time, what we've seen in these first 6 games with him, I think it's pretty it shows a guy that has developed. And the bigger thing is the confidence. We kind of thought he would be this guy as a secondary playmaker for OKC last year. but it didn't happen. Now, part of that is I think it's hard to be really good like this next to Russ, at least last year's Russ. But Orlando cut bait on him a little too early, right? Like they gave up on a lead guard needs time to develop. It's just how it is. It takes him 3 or 4 years to kind of figure things out, figure out, pace and how to even run a pick and roll, put a guy in jail, things like that. We're seeing all this stuff from Oladipo. The other thing, his shooting just looks so much better. And I don't know if this is confidence or just better rhythm or if he really put in a lot of work. I haven't broken down his mechanics to see how it compares to last year or the year before. But the biggest thing I think is just that he's not playing spot up. He's got the ball in his hands and able to develop a rhythm. So, yeah, I'm encouraged by Oladipo. I love that Indiana's getting out and running. I think that's what young teams that lack skill should do. So it's working for Orlando. This is what the Nets do. Get out and run and put the pressure on the defense. And then also you get extra possessions unless that other team is also gonna match your pace, which most teams aren't. But if they do, okay, well then now they're playing your game and they're playing right into your hands. So I think it's smart. I never would have thought that Nate McMillan was the guy to run a fast-paced offense. But hey, here we are. That opening game where it was 140-131, man, that felt like, old school basketball.
Oh yeah, and they're fifth in pace and they're pushing the ball. So you're right, and then there's a comfortability, I suppose is the word, with Oladipo having the ball in his hands more compared to what it was like in OKC, for instance. Even though his numbers were pretty similar in Orlando and in OKC, so something clicked, I guess, at least up until now. And if this keeps happening, then this will be proving my point that as we move forward, I have to imagine 3-point percentage has not moved up at all ever. Basically, it's been stuck around 35-36% for the average for all these years. And at some point, you have to imagine as it takes more and more hold of the game, you're going to have the guy see shooting better. I think this has to happen.
Yep, I agree.
So don't forget, if you join us in the Shindig, and we tweeted out the link there, then you can ask a question live. In fact, we have people in the chat room right now. You can come in here and actually ask a question with video, which would be really kind of neat. Join the program. So Jonathan's in there, and Tommy and Leo and Tom's and DJM and Cowboy Caviar. If you're still in here, come on, jump in here and ask us a question with your computer if you have one. I think you might even be able to do it mobile with your phone. So jump in here and let's watch some more questions. We got a few more minutes here, so. Anything else that we want to talk about? This has been already a great. We've covered a lot of stuff so far.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Let's see. We got another question in the Shindig from Tom's. Let's publish. We were worried all summer about the East, but it's less. I guess it's not as bad as we expected. Is there any reason for this? What I'll say is. And I hate to give this answer, but it is really early, right? And we also had a shorter training camp. I think that Denver's early offensive struggles, you can put a lot to that, to their short training camp. The fact that we're getting defensive teams are actually doing really, really well against some potent offenses because the offenses takes longer to dial in the offense than it does the defense. It's sort of like in baseball where pitchers start out ahead of hitters. Like the first month to 6 weeks of the season. I think that's what we've got a little bit going on. And so some of these East teams are catching some of these Western teams at just an inopportune time. But, you got to be ready to play. And ultimately the first game of the season counts the same as the last game of the season. So, but yeah, let's put it this way. The East has been way more entertaining than I expected, particularly because of Indiana, Brooklyn, and Orlando. They've just been so much fun to watch, and I'm loving it so far.
Me too. Brooklyn is another big one. We did a great video with Spencer Dinwiddie, the hero of the game against the Cavaliers, where he broke down some of the key plays that helped them win. And they're doing some great stuff. And it's amazing what happens when you start getting some NBA level quality talent there and veterans. All of a sudden, you start playing better, and you're certainly in those games more. It's not a 20-point blowout in the first quarter or at the end of the first quarter. So, but I would expect these things to normalize a little bit more as we play more games. I'm not sure that the East has played more games against the West than normal or that many even in the beginning. In a way that once those games start coming in, the West Coast trips come on, and they're playing. You have to go through the triangle. Like an East Coast team has to play Dallas and San Antonio back to back or whatever. That's when you're going to start seeing, the East, I think, start to lose any kind of edge they might have in the records. Interesting stuff. So, what do you say? Anything else? Oh, there's a great question here by Edmund Holden on the Periscope. Would you rather have Avery Bradley or Patrick Beverley to defend elite scoring point guards?
Probably, I don't know. That's tough because they're both really, really good at what they do. Avery Bradley is a little bit longer, but I think Patrick Beverley gets guys out of their comfort zone, right? And he gets into their head a little bit more. So I'd probably take Pat Bev, and that's just because I really like the mental aspect to his defense. I think he does such a good job of irritating guys, and also, his physicality is just something that a lot of guys struggle with. So I'd probably take Pat Bev, but I love Avery Bradley. I'd love to have both of those guys as my guards, right? Like that would just give me those two. Yeah, give me Jay Crowder. Give me Draymond Green. Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with all that stuff. I think that as far as toughness goes, it's you got to. I think you want to take, especially with 3-point shooting, you want to get guys out of their rhythm, and you probably have to go with Patrick Beverley because he's just gonna get you thrown out of the game. I mean, he's gonna get you a tech. He's gonna get you some stuff, and that's the difference there. So. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. So yes, so I would probably take Patrick Beverley, but I love what Avery Bradley's doing. And again, Detroit's a great pickup, for them as well, in a way that he's a big reason why they're doing what they're doing. I'm sure Coach Van Gundy loves him.
Yeah. How about one last question?
Okay.
We got, let's see.
Oh, we have one in our shindig here.
Yep.
Let's do it. You got it?
Yep. From Leo. DeAndre Jordan was in trade talks. Do you think they flip him before the trade deadline? Could the Clips get anything of worth at that point and more than last season? I guess, do you see anyone that could take them to the next level competing? I love DeAndre Jordan. I think flipping him right now, even though he's going to be a free agent this summer, would be a mistake for a team that's trying to compete. If I were them, I'd be trying to re-sign him. Keep him around, right? Good culture guy.
Yeah.
Good defender. He really him and Patrick Beverley as your point of attack and your guy at the rim, that's huge for them. It allows them to play Gallinari at the 3, right? That's the only reason they can get away with that. So, and sometimes Blake at the 4. So I did read about or from Zach Lowe where they said that they tried to make the trade for Clint Capella. That's Daryl Morey really being interested in DeAndre Jordan. I mean, I know that he really likes him a lot. So, I would be hanging on to DeAndre Jordan. But if he's not going to re-sign, then you need to trade him. You can't lose a DeAndre Jordan for nothing.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You can't afford to pay him like $27 million, whatever he's probably going to end up getting on the market. You can't do that. So, no matter what, you can. Here's my take on that. I like DeAndre. He's a good rim protector. He can, alley-oops, and he can set screens, do all that things. But you could find a guy to give you 74% of that production for $3 million a year or whatever, $6 million a year.
Sure.
And so that's really when you start getting that Moneyball feel where it's like, well, what can you get? What version of it can Willie Reed give you 75% of him for nothing? Yes. I mean, I would think you can. So I don't think that's a problem. It's a real dilemma that the Clippers are going to have to deal with. And I don't know. Do you have faith that they're going to be able to execute something that's going to be smart around him?
Well, I mean, Doc Rivers is no longer the GM, right? So we know that he's not going to make a trade for KG. He's not going to trade DeAndre Jordan to TNT for KG, right? So we know that's not happening. With that being said, I don't know. I mean, what's the market, right? Like you just said, we're seeing NBA centers, traditional centers, go the route of the running back in football. You can get them late and they can come in and do stuff. I mean, Jared Allen is a good example, right? He was like the 22nd pick or whatever he was, and he's probably going to be decent by year 2, year 3. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of centers out there, and there's not much of a market for them. So I'm not positive. I wouldn't have hated the Clint Capella trade for either team. I think DeAndre is more ready to contribute to a championship level team, but Clint Capella's pretty damn good, and he's coming along quickly. So, I don't know. It's tricky. I doubt anything happens. I would guess that DeAndre Jordan stays. Him and Blake are really close. Blake just signed a 5-year deal. I would assume that they keep DeAndre around.
I mean, certainly for this year, it's worthy because I think that they're onto something here, and perhaps they're playing even better than they did with CP3, which is worthy of another video with a lot of stuff to do. And if I could just get through this week and the weekend, next weekend, with a big family thing I've got planned, I'll be able to finally go full bore on all the videos and analysis and pods and everything and get back to the right schedule, which should have started now, right? We shouldn't have had the season for the last 2 weeks. I know why it started so early, but man, it shook everything up. So, well, anyway, listen, Dave, great show. Really good stuff. I think we've covered a lot of great topics.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe we're going into week 3 now of the NBA season. It's happened so quickly.
And I can encourage you all to join us when we do these shindigs where you can actually come in and ask us questions with text, which we did today. Every once in a while, somebody wants to come on with a camera or with the audio and ask a question like a call-in show. So get used to doing that. That'd be really fun to interact with you guys that way. And we'll chop it up again soon. And keep your eyes peeled on all the things that are happening in the NBA this week. There'll be a lot of good slate of games and a lot of good videos coming out. So, Dave, as always, thank you so much for joining us. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.